You see, most people think the mind is a battlefield. They wake up every morning fighting thoughts that tell them, you can't. They go to bed wrestling with memories that whisper, you failed. But what if I told you your mind was never built to be a battlefield? It was designed to be a seedbed. Everything you think, everything you water with attention, grows. When you say, I can't, the mind obeys. When you say, I will, it opens doors you didn't even know existed. That's the quiet magic of an affirmative mind. It doesn't argue, it builds. It doesn't fight reality, it bends it. Most people underestimate the power of self-talk. They speak defeat fluently but struggle with the language of power. They wait for life to give them permission before they rise, not realizing that the moment they say yes to themselves, life rearranges itself to honor that decision. The truth is, doubt is not your enemy, it's your signal. It's the red light that asks, will you stop here or keep going? And most people stop. But the ones who understand the power of affirmation push through. They affirm not because everything is perfect, but because they've decided perfection is no longer the requirement for progress. So the next time your mind tells you you're not enough, don't argue, don't beg, just affirm. Say it like you believe it, even if your voice shakes. I am ready, I am capable, I am becoming. Because power doesn't begin when you finally believe. It begins when you choose to affirm in spite of the disbelief. The affirmative mind is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about remembering that even in chaos, you can still choose your thoughts. It's about reclaiming your mental space and deciding that from this moment on, your words will not describe your life, they will design it. So breathe, stand tall, speak life, because where doubt ends, your true power quietly begins. The mind mirrors whatever you consistently affirm. It is not a poetic statement. It is an unshakable truth. Your mind is not a passive observer of life. It is an architect. It listens to every word you whisper, every belief you entertain, every doubt you repeat in the quiet corners of your thoughts. It doesn't ask if what you're saying is true or false. It simply obeys. It becomes what you repeatedly feed it. Imagine standing in front of a mirror. When you smile, it smiles back. When you frown, it reflects the same. The mirror has no preference, it only responds. Your mind works in exactly that way. If you keep saying, I can't do this, your mind reflects that belief back at you through hesitation, procrastination, and fear. If you say, I can handle this, your mind rearranges itself to support that confidence. It's not magic, it's mechanics. Think about mornings when you wake up already saying, today will be hard. Somehow, everything in the day bends to confirm that prediction. The bus is late, your boss is in a mood, your coffee spills. It's not that life suddenly conspired against you. It's that your focus trained your mind to filter only what aligned with your first thought. Your affirmation became your experience. Now imagine changing that. Imagine waking up and saying, I'm ready for whatever comes today. Suddenly, your mind searches for proof of that readiness. Small wins appear louder, setbacks feel lighter, and solutions begin to reveal themselves. The truth is, affirmation is not just about positive thinking. It's about mental conditioning. It's how you train your brain to serve you instead of sabotage you. We all have an inner voice that never stops talking. Some people let that voice bully them. Others learn to train it. And the ones who train it shape their destiny. There's a story of a woman who worked in a busy office, constantly overwhelmed by deadlines and criticism. Every day she told herself, I'm so stressed, I can't handle this anymore. Soon her body started to mirror that affirmation. She began to feel exhausted, anxious, constantly on edge. Then one day she tried something new. She didn't change her job or her boss or her workload, she only changed her words. Each morning, before stepping into the office, she whispered, I am calm, I am capable, I'm in control. At first, it felt fake, even forced. But after a few weeks, her coworkers began to notice. Her energy shifted. She wasn't as reactive. She handled problems with composure. She started to attract respect instead of pity. Nothing external had changed. Only her affirmations did. The mind listens to repetition more than reason. You can't convince it once and expect transformation. You must feed it the same truth until it becomes a reflex. Every time you say, I can't, your mind stores that file and opens it when you face challenge. Every time you say, I can, it stores that too, and eventually that becomes the first file it opens. Think of athletes before a big game. They don't walk in saying, I hope I don't mess up. They walk in saying, I've got this. They visualize success. They talk to themselves like champions long before they win. That's not arrogance, that's affirmation. Because they know the mind can't perform in a reality it doesn't first believe in. The same rule applies in everyday life. When you constantly affirm your limitations, you shrink your potential to fit those beliefs. You tell yourself, I'm just not good with people, and so you avoid conversations that could lead to opportunity. You say, I'll never be financially stable, and so you make decisions that confirm that belief. But when you shift your language to, I'm learning to connect, or I'm opening myself to abundance, the mirror of your mind begins to reflect new possibilities. Slowly, you start meeting people who align with your energy. You start finding chances that used to be invisible to you. One of the most powerful examples of this truth is how children learn about themselves. Tell a child over and over, you're smart, you're brave, you're loved, and watch how they grow into that identity. Tell them, you're lazy, you're difficult, you'll never succeed, and watch how their posture, their curiosity, their self-worth start to match that narrative. The same principle follows us into adulthood. We are all still those children, responding to the affirmations we feed ourselves every day. You might say, but I've failed before, I can't just lie to myself. Yet affirmation isn't lying, it's choosing which version of the truth to invest in. Failure is real, yes, but so is potential. Pain exists, yes, but so does resilience. The mind mirrors what you focus on. If you fixate on the wound, it deepens. If you focus on the lesson, it heals. Remember those days when you looked at yourself in the mirror and thought, I don't look good enough, and your entire energy dropped. Then another day, with the same reflection, you thought, I actually look good today, and suddenly your confidence carried you differently. Your face didn't change overnight. Only your affirmation did. That's how fast the mind responds. Affirmation is not pretending life is easy. It's deciding not to give your power to the hard parts. It's saying, yes, things are tough, but I am tougher. It's whispering to your mind until it starts to whisper back. It's refusing to let doubt be your default setting. And here's the thing most people miss. The mind doesn't just mirror what you consciously say, it mirrors what you emotionally repeat. So even your jokes, your sarcasm, your casual self-criticism, they all become commands to your subconscious. That's why saying I'm so dumb as a joke still registers as truth somewhere deep inside you. That's why constantly saying I'm broke keeps your mind tuned to scarcity. The mirror doesn't know you're joking, it just reflects. So be intentional. When you walk into a room, tell yourself I belong here. When you face a challenge, tell yourself I'm equipped for this. When you feel unworthy, tell yourself I am enough even as I grow. You don't wait until you feel ready. You affirm until readiness becomes your natural state. Every successful person, every resilient soul, every survivor of struggle has mastered one art. They've taught their minds what to believe. They've replaced the old, destructive affirmations with new, empowering ones. And in doing so, they've rewritten the story of their lives. The mind mirrors whatever you consistently affirm, so speak as if your words are blueprints, because they are. Doubt is a signal, not a stop sign. It's not the universe telling you to quit, it's your inner compass saying, pay attention. Most people misunderstand doubt. They treat it like a wall, when in truth, it's just a doorway, a moment between who you were and who you're becoming. Doubt doesn't come to destroy your dreams, it comes to test your commitment to them. Think about the first time you tried to learn something new. Maybe it was driving, maybe it was speaking in public, maybe it was starting a business or a relationship. In the beginning, your hands shook, your voice cracked, your heart raced. That wasn't weakness, that was your brain adjusting to a new reality. Doubt showed up not to stop you, but to ask, do you really want this? Because if you do, prove it by moving through me. Doubt has a way of disguising itself as logic. It tells you, maybe you should wait until you're more prepared, maybe you're not ready yet, maybe you'll fail like last time. It uses the voice of reason to protect you from pain. But in doing so, it also protects you from growth, because every version of your future self is waiting on the other side of a doubt you didn't let control you. A young man once dreamed of opening his own restaurant. Every time he walked past an empty building, his mind whispered, This could be yours. But another voice followed, louder, sharper. What if you fail? What if no one comes? What if you lose everything? He listened to that voice for years. He worked for others, served their dreams, while his own gathered dust in the corners of his imagination. One day, he met an older man who asked him, "What's stopping you?" He said, "I'm scared." "What if I fail?" The older man smiled and said, "Everyone fails. The difference is that some people use their failures as evidence they're not enough, while others use them as proof they're learning." That conversation changed him. He realized doubt was never the problem. It was his interpretation of it. The next time doubt visited, he didn't run from it. He listened. He asked himself, "What are you trying to show me?" And he realized his doubt wasn't saying, "You can't." It was saying, "Prepare better." It wasn't saying, "You'll fail." It was saying, "This matters to you." Doubt, when understood, becomes guidance. It points out where you need to strengthen your belief, not where you should stop. In everyday life, people stop because they mistake discomfort for danger. The moment something feels uncertain, they turn around. They don't realize that uncertainty is the birthplace of transformation. When a butterfly struggles to break free from its cocoon, that tension, that friction, it's not punishment, it's preparation. The wings only become strong enough to fly because of that struggle. Doubt serves the same purpose. It strengthens the muscles of your faith, your confidence, your resilience. Sometimes, doubt comes right before a breakthrough. It's like the silence before dawn. When everything feels still and uncertain, that's the moment most people give up. They assume the silence means failure, but in truth, it's the moment your next chapter is forming. How many dreams die not because they were impossible, but because someone mistook doubt for a stop sign? Think of the person who wants to start a new life after heartbreak. The fear whispers, "What if you get hurt again?" The doubt says, "You're not lovable enough." And yet, if that person pushes through, if they dare to love again, they often find a depth of connection they couldn't have before. The doubt wasn't a warning to stop. It was a reminder to heal, to choose differently, to rise stronger. A woman once stood on the edge of a stage, trembling before her first speech. Her hands were cold, her mind screaming, "You'll forget everything. You'll embarrass yourself." She wanted to run. But she remembered something a mentor told her: when you feel doubt, it means you're exactly where you should be. It means you've stepped out of the zone where you were safe, into the space where you'll grow. She took a deep breath, stepped forward, and spoke anyway. She stumbled on her first sentence, but by the end, the crowd was standing. Her voice, once trapped by doubt, became her power. Doubt doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're expanding beyond what you know. It means your mind is recalibrating to handle something greater. When you stop seeing doubt as an enemy and start treating it as information, you begin to understand yourself on a deeper level. It's the same feeling you get before taking a leap, your body's natural reaction to the unknown. It's not telling you don't jump, it's saying, brace yourself, this matters. So many people say they're waiting for confidence before they begin, but confidence doesn't come first. Action does. Confidence is the reward of walking through doubt, not the prerequisite. A musician doesn't wait to feel certain before stepping on stage. They step on stage despite the trembling, and that's what builds confidence. A student doesn't wait until they know everything before they start learning. They learn through uncertainty. Life is built that way. When doubt tells you you're not ready, it's often because you're stepping into something bigger than your old identity can handle. The mind clings to what's familiar. It tries to pull you back to safety, even if that safety is suffocating. But growth never lives in comfort. It lives in the spaces where you question yourself, where you wonder if you're capable, and then prove to yourself that you are. Sometimes doubt is a mirror. It shows you your fears, your insecurities, your hidden beliefs about what you deserve. And if you look closely enough, you'll see that every great moment in your life was once wrapped in doubt. The first time you confessed love, the first time you took a chance, the first time you stood up for yourself. Doubt was there every time, whispering its questions, and yet you moved anyway. So when doubt comes, don't curse it, study it. Ask, what are you trying to teach me? Maybe it's reminding you to prepare. Maybe it's asking you to trust. Maybe it's testing your resolve. but it's never telling you to quit. Quitting is your choice. Doubt is just the messenger. And the next time you feel it rising in your chest, the shaking hands, the racing thoughts, the tightness in your stomach, pause. Don't see it as fear. See it as proof that you're alive, that you're daring, that you're on the edge of evolution. Because only those who are moving forward ever meet doubt on the road. Those who stand still never feel it. Doubt is the companion of progress, the whisper that says, you're stepping into something new, keep going. Self-talk shapes your emotional reality. Every word you speak to yourself carries energy. Every sentence builds or breaks the walls of your inner world. The most powerful conversation you will ever have is not with another person. It's the one happening quietly inside your mind every single moment. That voice, the one that no one else hears, is the architect of your emotions, your confidence, your peace, and your fear. You wake up in the morning, look at yourself in the mirror, and before you even step out of your house, your self-talk has already decided what kind of day you'll have. You say, I look tired, I'm not ready for this, I hate my job, and your emotions immediately obey. Your body follows that command, your mood drops, your shoulders sink, your energy fades. But on another morning, you could look at the same reflection and say, I've handled worse, I've got this, I'm grateful to try again, and your entire chemistry changes. Your heart opens, your breathing slows, your confidence rises. Nothing outside of you changed. The same mirror, the same face, the same world. But the story inside your head shifted, and that changed everything. We underestimate how sensitive the mind is to the tone of our own voice. When you constantly call yourself lazy, your mind stops searching for motivation. When you keep saying you're unlucky, your emotions align with that hopelessness. But when you choose a different script, something as simple as I'm figuring it out, your inner system begins to support that belief. You start to see opportunities instead of obstacles, solutions instead of problems. That's not a miracle, that's neurology. Your thoughts trigger feelings, and your feelings decide your behavior. Think of the way a parent speaks to a child. If a parent keeps saying, you can't do anything right, the child begins to embody that statement, not because it's true, but because it's been repeated. Now imagine that child is your own inner self. Every time you tell yourself, I'm not good enough, you're parenting your potential with criticism instead of care. And that inner child listens, believes, and behaves according to those words. A young man once told me he couldn't find peace no matter what he did. He said he'd tried meditation, exercise, even therapy, but nothing worked. I asked him, what do you tell yourself when things go wrong? He paused and said, I always say I'm such an idiot. I smiled gently and said, you're not struggling with peace, you're struggling with how you speak to yourself. Every time he made a small mistake, he attacked himself. His body lived in a constant state of defense, his emotions on guard, waiting for the next insult to come from his own mind. When he finally replaced I'm such an idiot with I'm learning, his emotions started to soften. His anxiety began to lower. His reality didn't change, his self-talk did. This is how powerful your words are. You can either live in an inner environment that nourishes you or one that drains you. Imagine being in a relationship where someone constantly criticizes you, calls you names, reminds you of your failures. Eventually, you'd want to leave, wouldn't you? Yet so many people live inside that kind of relationship with themselves. They wake up to criticism, fall asleep to judgment, and then wonder why they feel emotionally heavy. Your self-talk creates the weather inside you. When it's filled with kindness, you walk through storms with calmness. When it's filled with negativity, even sunny days feel like shadows. And the most beautiful part is you control that weather. You may not control what others say or do, but you can absolutely control what you say to yourself. I remember watching a young woman at a gym struggling to lift weights. Each time she failed, she muttered under her breath, I'm so weak. The trainer stopped her and said, don't ever let your mouth talk your body out of its strength. That line stayed with me because it's true, your body listens to your language. Tell it you're weak, it gives up. Tell it you're getting stronger, it keeps trying. It's not delusion, it's direction. The world often tells you that to change your life, you need to change your habits, your routines, your surroundings. And yes, those matter, but all of that starts with how you speak to yourself. Self-talk is the seed of every external change. You can't build a confident life from words soaked in self-doubt. You can't build peace from a mind that constantly rehearses pain. Imagine someone standing in traffic, yelling at cars for honking, but never realizing they're standing in the middle of the road. That's what happens when you blame life for your emotions, but never notice your self-talk. You can't change the world's noise, but you can change your own tone. When you shift your words, you shift your emotions, and when your emotions shift, your world begins to feel different. A woman once told me she used to look in the mirror and list every flaw she could find. It became her morning ritual, self-criticism disguised as honesty. Then one day, she decided to do an experiment. For 30 days, she would look in the mirror and say, "I'm proud of you." At first, she felt silly, even fake. But as days passed, something softened. She started walking differently. She smiled more. She stopped apologizing for existing. People noticed, not because she changed her looks, but because she changed her language. Her words built a new emotional home inside her, one where she finally felt safe. The truth is, your emotions are not random. They are responses to the stories you tell yourself. When you say, "Nothing ever works for me," your emotions prepare for disappointment. When you say, "Something good might happen today," your emotions prepare for hope. And what you prepare for, you start to notice more. That's how powerful your focus is. Your reality is filtered through the tone of your inner dialogue. Think of a time when someone you admired complimented you. For the rest of that day, didn't everything feel lighter? The compliment didn't change the world around you. It changed your internal weather. Now imagine being that voice for yourself every day. Imagine being your own encourager, your own friend, your own safe space. Your emotions would begin to trust you again. Your mind would stop fighting you and start working with you. Self-talk is the soil from which your emotions grow. Feed it kindness, and you'll bloom confidence. Feed it cruelty, and you'll harvest fear. You can't grow joy from the seeds of self-hate. Your emotions are mirrors reflecting the words you plant daily. So speak gently, speak powerfully, because your heart listens even when your mind pretends not to. Affirmation is a decision, not a feeling. Most people wait for the right moment to start believing in themselves. They wait for evidence, for results, for applause. They think confidence has to feel natural before it becomes real. But that's not how the mind works. Affirmation doesn't wait for emotion, it creates it. It's a choice you make when everything in you still feels unsure. It's the quiet rebellion of saying, "I am capable," even when your hands are shaking and your heart doesn't believe it yet. You don't affirm because you feel powerful. You affirm because you've decided that power will no longer be something you chase. It will be something you choose. The truth is, feelings are followers. They follow your focus. They follow your words. They follow your decisions. People say, "I'll start believing in myself when I feel ready." But readiness doesn't come first. It's born in the moment you choose to affirm something better than your fear. Imagine a young man standing at the edge of a stage, about to speak for the first time in front of hundreds. His palms are sweaty, his throat dry, his thoughts spinning in every direction. The fear in his body screams, "You're not good enough for this." But instead of listening, he whispers to himself, "I can do this. I belong here. My voice matters." Those words don't instantly erase the fear, but they give him just enough strength to take the first step. That's affirmation as a decision. It's not waiting for calm, it's creating courage in chaos. Feelings are like the weather, they change every day. If you build your belief on feelings, your confidence will rise and fall like the seasons. But when you base it on a decision, it becomes steady. It becomes something you can return to even when the storm hits. Affirmation is that inner declaration that doesn't ask for proof, it becomes the proof. Think about the people who start new journeys. A woman decides to start her own business after years of working for someone else. She doesn't feel ready. Her mind keeps whispering, "What if you fail? What if no one believes in you?" But she wakes up every day, looks at her reflection, and says, "I'm building something that matters." She repeats it, even when there's no money, no clients, no validation. And slowly, her reality starts to follow her words. Not because magic happened, but because her decision to affirm gave her the energy to keep moving when others would have stopped. That's how power begins. Affirmation is not denial. It's not pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's acknowledging what is and still choosing to believe in what can be. It's saying, yes, I'm scared, but I'm still showing up. Yes, I've failed, but I'm still trying. Every time you affirm something, you're not lying to yourself, you're leading yourself. You're telling your mind which direction to move in. And once the mind commits, the emotions eventually catch up. There's a man who works 2 jobs, exhausted every night, dreaming of something better. Every day he says, this is my life, nothing will change, and life obeys. But if one day he shifts that script and says, this is temporary, I'm preparing for more, that one decision changes how he walks, how he works, how he sees himself. It may take time, but that small change in dialogue begins to rewire his path, because the mind always moves toward what it repeatedly hears. So many people say they don't affirm because they don't want to sound fake. But here's the truth. Most of your self-doubt is fake too. The fear that says you'll never make it, that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve happiness. It's all imagined. It's a lie built over years of repetition. So why fear sounding fake when you've been believing falsehoods for so long? Affirmation isn't pretending, it's correcting. It's rewriting the script life handed you. There's a woman who looks at her body in the mirror and whispers, I hate what I see. She says it every morning until it becomes her truth. One day, she decides to say something different. I'm learning to love this reflection. The first few days, it hurts to say it, it feels forced, foreign. But she keeps going, and over time, her eyes soften, her energy shifts. She starts taking care of herself, not from shame, but from love. Her affirmation didn't start from feeling good. It started from deciding she was worthy of feeling good. Every great transformation begins with a decision that felt unnatural at first. The athlete doesn't feel like training every day, but he decides to show up. The student doesn't feel like studying, but she decides to focus. The broken-hearted person doesn't feel like healing, but they decide to move forward anyway. Affirmation works the same way. It's a discipline of the mind. Sometimes you'll affirm things that contradict your current reality. You'll say, I'm successful, while your bank account disagrees. You'll say, I'm loved, while you feel completely alone. But those words are not delusion, they're direction. You're speaking to the version of yourself that exists beyond your current circumstances. And as long as you keep choosing that direction, life starts to bend toward it. Affirmation is not an emotional reaction, it's a declaration of authority. It's standing in the middle of your fears and saying, I decide who I am. It's the voice that says, yes, my feelings are loud, but my choices are louder. When you understand that, you stop waiting for motivation and start building it. You stop depending on moods and start depending on mindset. One day, a young boy was learning to ride a bicycle. He fell again and again, bruised and frustrated. He shouted, I can't do it. His father looked at him and said, say that again, but this time, say it differently. The boy frowned and whispered, I can do it. The father said, say it louder. And he did. After a few more tries, the boy started to balance, started to ride. That's the power of deciding to affirm. One shift in language, one shift in energy, and everything changes. Feelings may tell you you're not enough, but decisions rewrite destiny. The world doesn't move for those who feel confident. It moves for those who act despite not feeling ready. Affirmation is the language of those who refuse to be defined by their emotions. It's for those who choose truth over temporary doubt, decision over delay, and belief over fear. You don't wait for the right emotion to start affirming. You affirm until the right emotion arrives. Because emotion is temporary, but decision is power. And the moment you decide to speak life over your own name, you stop waiting for permission to rise. Your words design your direction. Every sentence you speak, every phrase you repeat, every whisper you tell yourself in silence, they all build invisible roads beneath your feet. People often think destiny is something written in the stars, something decided long before they arrived. But most of the time, it's written in their speech, shaped in their tongue, built by their vocabulary. You walk where your words lead you. Every statement you make is a seed, and your life is simply the harvest. When you constantly say, I'm lost, your mind begins to remove signposts. When you keep saying, I'm stuck, your emotions freeze in place. When you say, "I'll never make it," your body slows down to match that pace. But when you shift your words, even a little, everything begins to rearrange. Say, "I'm finding my way," and your brain starts scanning for routes. Say, "I'm learning to move again," and your body starts to respond with momentum. You see, your words are not just sounds, they are instructions to your future. Think about how people talk about themselves without even noticing it. Someone says, "I'm terrible with money," and then wonders why opportunities for financial growth never show up. Someone else says, "I always attract the wrong people," and then meets another version of the same mistake. The universe listens to repetition. It takes your words as blueprints, as commands. It doesn't argue, it builds. And whatever you keep declaring, even unconsciously, becomes the architecture of your experience. There's a story of a man who grew up hearing his father say, "Life is hard, people can't be trusted, dreams don't pay bills." He absorbed those words like air. When he became an adult, he repeated them, not out of belief, but out of habit. Every job he took felt heavy. Every opportunity felt suspicious. And every dream he had, he buried under practicality. One day, his young daughter asked him, "Why do you always say life is hard?" He paused. He realized he didn't know. It was just what he'd been taught to repeat. In that moment, he decided to change one sentence. He started saying, "Life is teaching me. People can surprise me. Dreams can build things." It felt strange at first, like he was borrowing someone else's language. But as time went on, he began to see evidence of what he was saying. Kind people appeared. Creative ideas found him. Work began to flow with less friction. Nothing mystical happened, only his direction changed because his words did. Your tongue is a compass. It doesn't point north or south. It points toward what you speak about most. If you constantly talk about failure, your focus drifts there. If you talk about possibilities, your mind begins to search for them. You cannot walk east while constantly describing west. You cannot move forward while your language keeps pointing backward. That's why the most successful people guard their words carefully. They don't speak what they fear. They speak what they are building. Think of someone training for a marathon. Imagine if every day they told themselves, "I'll never finish this race. My body isn't built for this." How long do you think they would last? Now imagine someone else with the same physical condition saying, "Every day I'm getting stronger. My legs are learning endurance. I'm closer than yesterday." Who do you think will cross the finish line? Both are speaking truth from their perspective, but one truth keeps them trapped and the other sets them free. Words are like bricks. Every morning you lay them down, and by evening, you live inside what you've built. Some people build prisons with their words, walls made of self-doubt and limitation. Others build doorways, phrases that open into new worlds. When you say, "I can't," you close a door. When you say, "I'll try," you open a window. When you say, "I will," you build a bridge. Look at relationships. Two people can love each other deeply, but if their language is filled with criticism, sarcasm, and comparison, the love begins to drown in the noise. But if they start speaking gratitude, reassurance, and honesty, the same relationship begins to thrive. Words either heal or harm, water or poison, build or break. The direction of a relationship often depends on the tone of its conversations, not the intensity of its feelings. Your mind believes whatever your mouth keeps repeating. It doesn't filter for accuracy, it filters for consistency. That's why if you keep saying, "I'm tired," your energy stays low. If you keep saying, "I'm cursed," your blessings hide. But if you start saying, "I'm grateful, I'm growing, I'm guided," your brain begins to align your actions with those statements. It starts noticing things that match your speech. That's not illusion, it's psychology. What you talk about, you begin to notice. What you notice, you begin to pursue. And what you pursue, you begin to create. There's a woman who used to say every day, "Nothing ever works out for me." One morning, she decided she was tired of hearing her own hopelessness. So she switched her words. She started saying, "Things are unfolding for me, even when I don't see it yet." She didn't say it once, she said it daily, through tears, through doubt, through silence. Within months, small things began to shift. Unexpected calls, small successes, moments of joy she used to overlook. Her external life didn't transform overnight, but her internal direction did. And once the inside changed, the outside had no choice but to follow. We often underestimate how powerful casual phrases are. Saying "I'm dying of stress" tells your body to tighten. Saying "I'm so unlucky" trains your mind to ignore luck when it arrives. But saying "I'm handling this," even when you're trembling, reminds your subconscious to stay resourceful. Your direction doesn't start in your feet, it starts in your mouth. Your words are your steering wheel. You can't complain your way into joy, you can't criticize your way into confidence, and you can't curse your way into peace. There's a scene many people repeat in their daily life without realizing it. They wake up late, spill their coffee, curse their morning, and declare, "Today is ruined." And so it is, not because it was destined, but because they confirmed it. Another person wakes up late, spills their coffee, laughs, and says, "It's okay, it's just a moment." And the day unfolds gently, guided by that small grace. Same events, different words, completely different direction. When you start paying attention to how you speak, you realize that words aren't random, they are rituals. Every time you speak, you reinforce a belief, and that belief becomes your reality. So if you find yourself lost, listen to your language. It will always tell you where you've been heading. Your words are not just reflections of your life, they are instructions to it. Every syllable is a step, every sentence is a road, every conversation is a compass shift. Speak carefully, because your future is listening. Power begins with conscious thought choice. It sounds simple, but it's the turning point of every transformation that ever happened in a human life. The moment you decide what to think, you begin to design your world. Most people believe life just happens to them, like a river that drags them wherever it wants. They wake up reacting to messages, to news, to moods, to people. But few realize that every reaction begins with one invisible moment, a thought they agreed to believe. That's where power hides, not in the world, but in what you choose to think about it. Every single person has experienced this truth, even if they never put it into words. Think of a morning when you woke up already tired, muttering, "This day is going to be awful." Within hours, everything seemed to confirm that prophecy. Traffic moved slower, people seemed ruder, your plans fell apart. But on another day, you woke up thinking something good will happen today, and suddenly the same world looked different. You smiled at strangers, opportunities felt easier, and somehow the day unfolded more gently. Nothing changed outside. What changed was the choice you made before the world even started speaking. Conscious thought choice is the silent architecture of your power. It's not about pretending bad things don't exist. It's about refusing to let them design your reality. You can't control every event, but you can control the meaning you give to it. Two people can lose their jobs on the same day. One says, "This is the end of me," and collapses under the weight of it. The other says, "This is my chance to start something of my own," and begins building a new chapter. Same event, different power. One chose despair, the other chose direction. The problem is most of our thoughts aren't chosen. They're recycled. They come from the past, from our parents, teachers, mistakes, and fears. They run like old programs we forgot to uninstall. You hear people say things like, "I'm just not confident," or "That's just who I am." But those are not truths. Those are inherited thoughts that they kept repeating until they became identity. Conscious thought choice means you pause before believing. It means you question every automatic voice that tells you who you are or what you can't do. Because once you start questioning, you start reclaiming your mind. There's a man who once spent years calling himself unlucky. Every time something went wrong, a flat tire, a lost wallet, a failed project, he'd say, "Of course, that's just my luck." But one day, a mentor asked him, "What if your luck isn't bad, just untrained?" That single question cracked his pattern. He began experimenting with thought choice. Every time something went wrong, instead of saying, "Of course," he said, "What can this teach me?" Within a year, his entire life changed, not because his circumstances suddenly favored him, but because he stopped handing them his power. Your thoughts are votes for the person you are becoming. Every time you choose a thought, you're casting a ballot for your future self. When you say, "I can handle this," you vote for strength. When you say, "This always happens to me," you vote for weakness. Imagine your mind as a parliament of voices. Some are bold, others are fearful, some want to build, others want to hide. Conscious thought choice is the moment you decide who gets the microphone. You can't silence every negative thought, but you can refuse to let it speak for you. Think of it like driving a car. Random thoughts are like passengers. They can talk, they can shout, they can even argue. But you decide who's driving. Most people let the loudest thought grab the wheel, and then they wonder why they keep crashing into the same patterns. Conscious thought choice means saying, no, not this time, I'm driving, that's power. Not control over the world, but control over yourself within it. In relationships, this choice changes everything. When someone ignores you, the automatic thought might be, I'm not important. But what if you pause and choose differently? What if you say, maybe they're just busy, or my value doesn't depend on their attention? Instantly, your emotional state shifts. Instead of spiraling, you stay centered. That's not denial, that's discipline. Conscious thought choice doesn't protect you from pain, it protects you from surrendering to it. There's a woman who used to crumble under criticism. Every time someone corrected her, she'd think, I'm not good enough. One day, she decided to try a new thought, I'm learning, and that's what strong people do. It didn't feel natural at first. Her mind fought it, but she kept repeating it like planting a seed in rocky soil. Over time, that thought became her instinct. Feedback stopped feeling like an attack and started feeling like guidance. She became more confident, more open, more creative. And the only thing she changed was one sentence inside her head. Your power begins the moment you interrupt the automatic, when you stop letting fear finish your sentences, when you stop letting insecurity write your story, when you stop saying I can't before you even try. Every powerful person you admire has mastered this. They still feel doubt, but they don't obey it. They hear the same fearful voice that says, what if it doesn't work? But they answer, what if it does? They choose a better thought, again and again, until that thought becomes their nature. Even in small, ordinary moments, this practice reshapes everything. You spill coffee on your shirt before a meeting. One mind says, great, now I look stupid. Another says it's fine, it's just coffee. One thought ruins your energy for hours, the other lets you move on in seconds. Same situation, different life. It's astonishing how much peace you can create just by choosing what to think. And here's the deeper secret, your emotions don't control your thoughts. Your thoughts control your emotions. When you say, I can handle this, you begin to feel calm. When you say, I'm doomed, your body floods with anxiety. Every emotion you feel is the echo of a thought you allowed. Change the thought and the echo changes. This is why awareness is power. Once you see your thoughts, you no longer drown in them. You begin to steer. A mind left unguarded will always drift toward fear because fear is easy. It doesn't require creation, only reaction. But a conscious mind, one that chooses, becomes magnetic. It attracts clarity, opportunity, peace. Because it's no longer begging the world to change, it's choosing its state before the world even speaks. Imagine waking up every morning and saying, today I choose thoughts that build me. That one choice reshapes every hour that follows. Power doesn't begin with strength, it begins with awareness. The awareness that you can choose your thought and therefore your feeling, your action, your life. Nothing external gives you that. It's an internal permission. Conscious thought choice is how you stop living by default and start living by design. When you understand that, doubt doesn't disappear, but it loses its authority. And what rises in its place is quiet, undeniable power. You don't need belief to start, just consistency. So many dreams die in the mind before they even touch reality because people think they have to believe first. They wait for confidence, they wait for clarity, they wait to feel ready. But here's the truth, no one likes to admit readiness never arrives fully dressed. Belief doesn't knock on your door and say, hey, I'm here, now you can begin. Belief grows from evidence, and evidence only appears after you take action. You don't believe to begin, you begin to believe. Imagine a young artist staring at a blank canvas. Her hands tremble because she doesn't think she's good enough. She scrolls through social media, sees others painting masterpieces, and whispers to herself, who am I to try? Days pass, then weeks. The canvas remains untouched, and the self-doubt grows heavier. But one morning something shifts. She decides, maybe I'll just draw one line. Not because she believes she can paint a masterpiece, but because she's tired of waiting for belief. That one line turns into a sketch, the sketch turns into a painting, And a few months later, she's creating every day. When people ask her where her confidence came from, she smiles and says, "From showing up before I felt ready." Consistency is the quiet architect of transformation. It doesn't shout, it doesn't sparkle, it doesn't demand applause. It simply repeats the same small effort until the impossible becomes obvious. Think of a person learning to play guitar. The first week, their fingers ache, the strings cut into their skin, and the sound is terrible. They think, maybe I'm not made for this, but they keep strumming, not perfectly, not confidently, just consistently. One day, without realizing it, the sound changes. Their fingers find the chords with ease, and music finally flows. They didn't wake up one morning suddenly talented. They simply refused to stop. Belief is like a flame. It needs friction to spark. That friction comes from doing, failing, learning, and doing again. But most people try to light it by thinking. They sit in their rooms trying to imagine success until it feels real. It never does, and so they give up, saying, maybe it wasn't meant for me. But belief doesn't grow in the mind alone. It grows in the muscle. It grows in motion. When you show up every day, even in doubt, even in fear, your brain starts collecting proof that you're capable. Slowly, your identity changes from I'm trying to I'm becoming. There's a young man who wanted to get fit, but didn't believe he could. Every time he looked in the mirror, his inner voice mocked him. He tried gym memberships, diets, motivation videos, but nothing stuck because belief wasn't there. One day, he decided to do something different. He told himself, I don't need to believe, I just need to show up. So he went to the gym every day for 15 minutes. Sometimes he barely worked out. Sometimes he only walked on the treadmill. But he didn't miss a single day. Months later, his body changed, his energy rose, and the mirror stopped being his enemy. He built belief not by convincing himself, but by proving himself. Consistency is powerful because it removes negotiation. Once you decide to show up daily, no matter how you feel, your emotions lose control over your destiny. People who wait for motivation will always be prisoners of mood. One bad morning, and the dream dies. But those who move without waiting for the perfect feeling, those are the ones who build legacies. It's not the talented who win, it's the persistent. Look at how nature works. The sun doesn't decide to rise based on how it feels. The waves don't stop because they're tired. The seasons don't wait for belief, they follow rhythm. Consistency is nature's law, and when you align with it, everything starts to respond to you. Even small, boring efforts compound into something magnificent when repeated long enough. Someone once said, you don't rise to the level of your motivation, you fall to the level of your habits. That's the essence of consistency. You don't need to wake up inspired every day. You just need to wake up and move. Think of brushing your teeth. You don't question it, you just do it because it's part of you. That's how success is built, not from passion bursts, but from quiet repetition. And here's the beautiful thing, consistency doesn't just build skills, it builds character. It teaches you patience when results are invisible. It teaches you humility when progress feels slow. It teaches you resilience when setbacks come. Every time you show up despite not believing, you prove that your discipline is stronger than your doubt. And one day, without even noticing, you'll look back and realize that belief finally caught up with your consistency. Think about how a seed grows. When you plant it, there's no visible proof that anything is happening. The soil looks still, the surface empty. But underneath, something is shifting, quietly, invisibly. That's what happens when you stay consistent. Even when you can't see growth, roots are forming. And those roots will eventually break through the surface, not because you believed hard enough, but because you refused to stop watering. You'll meet people who say, I wish I had your confidence, not realizing that confidence came after the 1,000 unseen repetitions. They'll call it natural, but you'll know the truth, it was built. Every time you showed up when no one was watching, when your hands were shaking, when you wanted to quit, you were laying the bricks of belief. You earned it. A writer once said, I write only when inspiration strikes, but it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock. That's the secret. Show up long enough, and inspiration starts to trust you. It meets you halfway. Belief begins to follow your footsteps. The universe starts to cooperate with the consistent. You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You don't even have to believe there's a top, you just have to keep climbing, because every step, every attempt, every repetition is a declaration that you're not giving up on yourself. That's how lives are transformed, not through grand leaps, but through small, stubborn movements repeated over time. So stop waiting for the perfect mindset, the right moment, the spark of confidence. Those things are built, not born. Just start. Start messy, start uncertain, start scared. Because once you start and stay consistent, something magical happens. The mind begins to trust you again. It begins to believe in your direction. And when belief finally arrives, it won't feel like a miracle. It will feel like the natural result of never giving up. The affirmative mind transforms chaos into clarity. When everything feels like it's falling apart, when thoughts are spinning too fast to catch, when the world feels loud and heavy, the affirmative mind becomes your anchor. It doesn't erase the storm, it simply remembers where the calm lives. Chaos is not the enemy, it's the noise before alignment. But clarity never appears to those who scream at the storm. It appears to those who whisper direction into it. Think about the moments when life felt too big to handle. Maybe you were overwhelmed at work, juggling deadlines, responsibilities, and expectations. You sat there heart racing, thoughts tangled, not knowing where to start. Then, out of sheer desperation, you paused, took a deep breath, and said, okay, one thing at a time. That sentence, simple as it sounds, was your mind choosing affirmation over panic. It's the difference between drowning in chaos and swimming through it. The moment you speak clarity, your brain starts to follow. The affirmative mind isn't about pretending chaos doesn't exist. It's about redefining what chaos means to you. It says, this isn't destruction, this is construction happening too fast for me to recognize. When everything feels out of control, the affirmative mind looks for patterns. It looks for purpose. It asks, what is this trying to teach me? And that single question changes the vibration of the moment. It moves you from victimhood to vision. There was a woman who lost her job unexpectedly. Bills were piling up, her confidence was collapsing, and everyone around her kept saying, times are tough. One night, she sat in her car, crying, and whispered to herself, this is not the end, this is a reset. Those 7 words became her lifeline. Instead of spiraling into fear, she started planning. She made a list of her skills, reached out to old contacts, and started freelancing. Within months, she was earning more than before. But it didn't start with luck. It started with an affirmation born in chaos. Affirmation doesn't mean fantasy. It's not saying everything's fine when it's not. It's saying everything's figure-outable. It's choosing a perspective that keeps you moving forward. The affirmative mind doesn't wait for peace to arrive. It creates it through focus. Chaos can make you forget your direction, but affirmation rebuilds your internal compass. Look at an athlete under pressure. The crowd is screaming, the clock is ticking, the score is tight. Chaos is everywhere. But inside their head, there's silence, rhythm, repetition. Breathe, focus, you've trained for this. That's the affirmative mind at work. It turns adrenaline into alignment. It doesn't deny the chaos, it channels it. The same principle applies to life. The noise outside doesn't matter as much as the voice inside. Most people feed chaos with their words. They say things like, I can't do this, I'm falling apart, nothing makes sense. And their mind obeys. It starts creating more confusion to match the command. But the affirmative mind speaks differently. It says, I can handle this, one step at a time, I'm learning as I go. And suddenly, pathways appear where panic once lived. The brain listens to the tone of your thoughts. Speak in chaos and it scrambles. Speak in calm and it organizes. There's a man who used to panic every time he faced multiple problems at once. When his finances dropped, his relationships strained, and his plans failed, he'd spiral into exhaustion. Then one day, a mentor told him, your mind is a room. Chaos comes when you leave every drawer open. Start closing one at a time. That became his practice. Instead of saying, everything is a mess, he started saying, this part needs attention right now. And just like that, the room of his mind became manageable. Clarity was never missing. It was buried under unnecessary noise. The affirmative mind also understands the power of focus. Chaos thrives in distraction. It multiplies when you try to fix everything at once. Clarity comes when you zoom in, when you ask, what is one thing I can do right now that brings peace closer? Sometimes that one thing is small, drinking water, cleaning your space, taking a walk. But those small actions restore order inside you. And when order returns within, it begins to echo outside. Think of a person learning to drive for the first time. At first, everything feels overwhelming. The mirrors, the pedals, the traffic, the signs. Chaos floods the senses. But then the instructor says, focus on one thing, keep your eyes on the road ahead. And just like that, everything else starts to make sense. The chaos doesn't disappear, but it no longer owns the moment. That's what an affirmative mind does. It teaches you where to look when everything feels like too much. Chaos also tests what you truly believe. It shakes your foundations to reveal what's real and what's borrowed. When the world gets noisy, the affirmative mind doesn't cling to fear. It leans into faith, not religious faith, but inner trust. The quiet belief that says, I've survived every storm before, and this one is no different. That's not arrogance. That's memory. You've already walked through worse nights. The mind just needs reminding. Sometimes clarity doesn't arrive in full light, it comes in fragments. One insight here, one calm breath there, one new idea in the middle of exhaustion. And the affirmative mind collects these fragments and builds with them. Chaos wants you to give up before the pattern reveals itself, but the affirmative mind keeps searching until the puzzle starts making sense. Picture a student studying for an exam with too much material to cover. Panic hits first. There's not enough time, not enough energy. But then they decide, let me start with one chapter. Slowly, things begin to connect. What once looked impossible now looks like a sequence. That's the shift from chaos to clarity. Not by magic, but by mental discipline. Life will always have storms. Deadlines will clash, people will misunderstand you, plans will collapse. But every moment of chaos carries a message. The affirmative mind listens to that message instead of the noise. It says, something inside this confusion is trying to grow me. And when you adopt that mindset, you stop fearing the unknown. You begin to walk through uncertainty with a steady heart. A young entrepreneur once said, my biggest breakthrough came right after my biggest breakdown. Because in the breakdown, his thoughts were forced to reorganize. He realized chaos wasn't punishing him. It was forcing him to shed what no longer fit. That's the hidden grace of chaos. It clears space for clarity. When you learn to think affirmatively, you start seeing patterns in pain, lessons in loss, and growth in resistance. Your mind stops labeling moments as good or bad. It starts asking, what is this trying to reveal? And in that question lies peace. The affirmative mind doesn't chase calm. It creates it from within, even when the world is shaking outside. It takes the shattered pieces of confusion and arranges them into direction. It turns every moment of chaos into the next step toward clarity. The truth is, life will never wait for you to be ready. It won't slow down until you find the perfect plan. It won't pause so you can gather your courage, and it won't whisper instructions in your ear. It moves, it tests, it demands. And in that motion, it gives you two choices. Either you shrink back into comfort, or you step forward into creation. Every step toward your future begins in silence. When you finally decide that hesitation has stolen enough of your time, it's not the universe holding you back, it's your belief that you need permission to begin. But you don't. You never did. There comes a point when you have to stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I fly? Because failure is not the opposite of success, it's the evidence that you had the courage to try. The most powerful people you admire aren't fearless, they're simply tired of letting fear win. Every champion was once a beginner who refused to quit. Every empire started with a single uncertain idea that someone chose to believe in. And every version of yourself that you dream about already exists, waiting for you to show up for it. Think about the countless moments you almost started but didn't. Those seconds when inspiration touched your chest, but you told yourself, maybe later. You weren't lazy, you were scared. Scared that your voice wouldn't matter, scared that your dream would embarrass you, scared that no one would care. But what if someone needed exactly what you've been holding back? What if your courage could unlock someone else's? Sometimes your act of bravery becomes the light another person uses to find their own way out of the dark. The world doesn't remember the people who only dreamed, it remembers the ones who dared to turn dreams into movement. The painter who kept painting after rejection. The speaker who kept talking when no one was listening. The writer who kept writing through doubt. They weren't chosen. They chose themselves. And that's the secret you've been waiting to hear. You don't need a sign. You are the sign. People spend years searching for purpose, but purpose isn't hiding in a faraway mountain or waiting in a quiet temple. It's built in your choices, carved by your discipline, and shaped by your voice. Purpose isn't something you find. It's something you become when you start living like your thoughts matter, because they do. Every time you speak power, you plant a seed. Every time you act with faith, you water that seed. And every time you stay consistent, you give it sunlight. That's how transformation grows, slowly, quietly, but undeniably. There will be nights when the silence feels heavy, when progress feels invisible, when you start to wonder if any of it is worth it. In those moments, remember this: even stars are born in chaos. Galaxies form from explosions. And the brightest light you will ever see in yourself will come after your darkest nights. Your pain is not a punishment, it's preparation. The universe isn't testing your limits. It's revealing them so you can rise above them. You will meet people who won't believe in you, who will doubt your dreams, who will remind you of every failure you've ever made. Smile at them, not because they're wrong, but because you now understand that their doubt can't define your direction. You've learned that belief isn't borrowed, it's built. You've learned that consistency is stronger than talent. And you've learned that an affirmative mind doesn't wait for proof, it creates it. One day, you'll look back and realize the version of you that once hesitated has become the one others look up to. The one who used to whisper, "I can't now, rowers, I did." And it won't be because the world got easier. It will be because you got stronger. Strength isn't born in comfort, it's born in resistance. The pressure you feel right now isn't trying to break you. It's trying to shape you into the person you promised yourself you'd become. Remember this whenever you want to give up. The world moves for those who refuse to stop walking. Every step, no matter how small, sends a message to life itself that you are not done yet. The mountain doesn't move for those who complain about the climb. It moves for those who keep climbing, breathless but unbroken. Your path doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. You will never control how life unfolds, but you can always control how you meet it. Every time you choose patience over panic, focus over fear, action over avoidance, you are declaring power. And power doesn't come from titles or applause. It comes from the quiet decision to keep going when everything tells you not to. That is the essence of an affirmative mind, the unwavering ability to look at the storm and say, "I'm still here." The most beautiful thing about the human spirit is that it can rebuild itself from ashes and still come out stronger. The fire that was meant to destroy you will someday be the same fire that lights your way. And the same pain that once silenced you will become the voice that inspires others to rise. Every scar you carry isn't evidence of failure, it's proof that you healed. Maybe right now, you're standing at the edge of your next beginning. Your hands are shaking, your heart is loud, your doubts are louder. Take a deep breath. This is the moment where everything changes. This is the space between fear and freedom. All it takes is one step, one thought, one word of affirmation. Whisper to yourself, "I can, I will, I am becoming," because those 3 sentences hold more power than every fear combined. Your future is not waiting to be discovered. It's waiting to be declared. Speak it, build it, live it. Because the world doesn't need another echo of fear. It needs a voice of conviction. It needs your story, your strength, your sound. Stop waiting for signs from the sky. The sign is your own heartbeat. It's been telling you the same thing all along: you are not finished yet. The most famous mountains in history were climbed by those who started with trembling steps. The greatest inventions were built by those who failed hundreds of times, but refused to stop believing in their vision. And the most inspiring people you will ever meet are not the ones who never fell, they're the ones who got up every single time. So rise, even if your voice shakes, speak. Even if your hands tremble, build. Even if your heart doubts, move. Because motion creates belief, and belief creates power. In the end, you won't be remembered for how perfectly you lived, but for how courageously you chose to live anyway. Your story is still being written, and the pen has always been in your hands. Write it with fire, with faith, with every ounce of affirmation you have left, because when doubt ends, power begins, and once you taste that power, you'll never return to the smallness you once called safety.